At today's session, I will present you the concept of building functions and linking them with device channels in ETS 5 Professional. I would like to start with the overview of the presentation. So here we see the three different parts of the presentation. Part number one, a short explanation about KNX Virtual and how to get it, because we're going to use it to demonstrate the building functions and the channel linking, so that you know what tools I'm going to use and how you can also find them and use them as well. Part number two, getting into the concept of the device channels and building functions, so the theoretical part of the session today. And part number three, which I think is the most interesting part, is to go live with ETS Professional and KNX Virtual, create the functions, link the functions with the channels, download the devices, and see how the concept is applied in practice. So let's start with part one. So in order to show you in practice how to create functions and link them with device channels, we will need some KNX devices and of course our software, ETS Professional, for this session. KNX Virtual, as you might already know, if you do not, then you will learn it today, is actually a device simulator that runs on Windows and simulates twisted pair KNX devices such as push button, switching actuator, dimming actuator, and other several devices. We will not need physical devices for this presentation. We're going to use KNX Virtual as such to demonstrate the functionality. At first, we developed KNX Virtual for us internally at KNX Association for software testing, for specification explanation. However, having seen the tremendous amount of requests from our community when we use it in our webinars and in the fairs in order to show software functionality, but also having understood its really high potential, we have decided to make it public and enrich it with more features. It's of course free of charge for everybody, and one can get it via My KNX by placing an order. Don't worry, even if it requires an order, it's free of charge and nothing will be charged to you at the end of the process. Once you go through and complete the ordering process, KNX Virtual will be made available to you directly in your My KNX account under the section My Products. Then you have to click the download button to get it. And once it's downloaded, simply extract the content of the zip file to example given your desktop and run it. It does not require any installation, and it's of course virus free as long as you get this file from My KNX only. This is the only trustful source for you. I think we said enough for KNX Virtual. If you would like to find out more information about it and about its features, do not hesitate to visit its website at virtual.knx.org. Now, let's dive into our actual today's topic, starting from the theoretical part, which contains a short explanation for the channels and the functions within ETS. A device channel shall be seen as a collector of group objects. Some of the benefits of having the group objects grouped into channels are, first of all, you get a better overview of the devices and their respective group objects and consequently their functionality. Second, you can achieve faster device linking because multiple group objects belonging to a channel can be linked with multiple group addresses from a device. Therefore, you can imagine how much time one can save when having to link maybe hundreds of group objects to group addresses. On these slides, you can see how a channel looks like in ETS Professional. This is channel 1 from our KNX Virtual device clicks the push button. This is a channel with a specific configuration for switching on and off where there are two group objects, one for switching and one for retrieving the status of that linked group address. The device channels are defined by the respective KNX manufacturer when designing the products into their manufacturer tool. Therefore, it's up to the manufacturer to provide his devices with channels. However, as this feature is optional, and since there are actually devices out in the market that existed before this feature was offered to the KNX manufacturer, and to be more specific, the possibility to create channels as a manufacturer was released to the manufacturers years ago with ETS4. Therefore, for devices that do not implement channels, we offer the possibility to the ETS users to create them, either manually by creating a channel and then by drag and drop the desired group objects, or semi-automatic, I would call it, by accepting the suggestions made by ETS. Keep in mind that the manually created channels are stored locally in the user profile on the user's computer, and the channel configuration applies for all identical devices in all projects you might have on your computer. And also important, do not affect the product data in the catalog. So the channel configuration is independent from the product data that has been defined by the manufacturer, and that's why it's stored locally as usage data. Furthermore, what is also important for you to know is that if a device implements already channels, meaning that the manufacturer has already defined channels for the group objects, then it's not possible for the ETS user to add them. Simply spoken, because the group objects within the channels may contain metadata in order to allow smart linking, something that we will see a few slides later, and editing those channels would invalidate those metadata, and that's something that we do not want to do. Now the functions. From the user's point of view, a function is a way to create the representation and the configuration of an electrical circuit or a circuit in general in ETS. Example given, master lighting in the bedroom, so that it can be linked with the respective devices. Example given, an actuator and a push button. From the technical point of view, a function is an element for collecting and structuring group addresses in a project, similar to what we saw for the group objects, but this time is about the group addresses. So the principle is grouping group objects for the channels and grouping of group addresses for the device functions. The benefits of having functions in a project are quite similar to those of having channels, and in fact, the combination of channels and functions in a project is what maximizes the benefits for the ETS users. As said, before linking device channels to functions, or linking channels to functions can actually perform multiple group object to group address linking with one only step, which as such can impressively reduce the time to design a project. Simply imagine today how much time you spend to create the group addresses and afterwards to link them with the corresponding group objects, assign the data point types, etc., etc. This is all simplified and made much more faster with the channel linking to building functions. Furthermore, when a project shall be transferred to ETS Inside, it is required to have functions to work with the project in ETS Inside. Those functions can, of course, be created in ETS Inside as well, but that would imply more work, and especially when a project is completed, then it might look bizarre to create the functions additionally in order to configure the project in another software, but technically it's possible. Therefore, why not creating the functions from the beginning, simply spoken? And last, the group addresses that are created as a consequence of having created the functions get automatically the correct data point type, which as such allows an easier debugging when using the monitor, one of the benefits of having the data point types assigned. To create a function, a user can choose either from the predefined functions that ETS Professional offers, or create custom ones. The benefits of choosing one of the standard functions can be seen here on this table. Let's quickly interpret or explain the table. A function from the standard functions has, first of all, a different icon based on its type, which cannot be modified, while a custom function has always the same icon. Example given, a switchable light has a light bulb as an icon, while the custom function has only one fixed icon that cannot be modified. The standardized functions generate always group addresses where the naming and the description follow a specific pattern. So you do not have to manually create the group addresses yourselves afterwards, which as such can also save quite some time, as said before. Furthermore, there are specific metadata assigned to the group addresses, either visible on the user interface, like the data point types, or hidden, like the group address role. So what is a group address role? A group address role is in fact metadata assigned to group objects by the manufacturers, and that role actually defines whether a group address from a function can be linked to a group object by the device manufacturer so that the device supports smart linking, something that we will see in the next few moments. As you see, creating a function based on one of the standardized functions comes along with several benefits. And here is an overview of the available functions with their group addresses and the respective data point types. Important for you is that a function that has been created using one of the standard functions can also be extended with more group addresses if needed, or remove some of the existing group addresses, although this is not really recommended because the metadata will be lost, or modify existing group addresses. This is also possible. So here you see the switchable light, the dimmable light, and the sun protection functions with the respective group addresses and their data point types. And you also see the icons and how those functions are represented in ETS. And last, here we see the heating function with switchable variable and the heating with continuous variable. We know that those functions might not be enough, and therefore we are actually going to extend those standard functions in ETS with those specified in the KNX specifications under the functional block definition, so that your projects, if you use, of course, the functions, will be prepared for the KNX IoT world, in case you would like in the future to interoperate with a third-party API. Then, if you use those standardized functions provided by ETS, it will be much easier to expose your installation's information to an internet call via KNX IoT interface, since your ETS will be able to interpret the meaning of the functions in your project and actually facilitating you when exporting the project information to the KNX, the respective KNX IoT interface. While today, or even in the future, if you only have group addresses, then ETS does not have the semantic information to recognize that the combination of group addresses composes a specific function. While when using the functions, ETS has all the semantic information to know that a combination, a collection of group addresses represents a building function. Let's go to the practical parts of our webinar today, and let's start our tools, meaning ETS Professional and KNX Virtual. So I'm going to import a project that I have created to save some time. So I have my project here. I called it Building Functions and Channel Linking. So I have created a building. I have created a room in which I have inserted a cabinet with 3 devices, and in the room I have the push button and an RGB light controller. So I have inserted those 3 devices in the cabinet, and I have created those functions. How did I create those functions? Quite easy, either by selecting the room or the place where I want to create the functions, right click, add functions, and then you can create from the available function types or the custom one. In our example, as you have seen, I have created switchable lights and dimmable lights in the bedroom. Let's have a look in the parameterization of the devices here. So we do have a switching actuator. The switching actuator has info on off feedback on all channels, as you can see. And the dimming actuator has dimming steps 32, feedback info dimming value, so no info on off, but info dimming value, and that applies for all channels. And you can see that those devices here, the KNX Virtual devices, implement channels. So we have defined channels for those devices, and those channels contain specific group objects, depending, of course, on the device configuration. So the switching actuator contains channels, the dimming actuator contains channels, the switching actuator does not contain any channel. This is a device where we're going to demonstrate how to create channels. The clicks also contains channels, and the RGB controller contains or implements channels as well. Now, let's see how we can link the functions that we have created here, which you can see here. We have 4 switching functions and 4 dimming functions. So let's see how we can quickly link the functions to the channel. So I would like to link the first 4 or the switching functions in my bedroom with the switching actuator. So what I have to do, easy, I have to, will also expand the channels of the push button. And I will start from the push button. I will simply drag the channel from clicks onto the switching function here. And then you see ETS also indicates link with as a tooltip. So I drag and drop it on the function. And here we do have the link with function dialog, where we can define how we want ETS to link the channel with the function. What is the meaning of that dialog here is that we can define it once. So I want that this group address is linked with that group object, and the second group address shall be linked with the other group object. I confirm it once, and then I can do that quickly for the remaining channels. You see, this is already defined here. Okay. 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 Quick. So we have done only half of the task. Now we have also to link the function with the actuator. So because we have only linked the push button, so we do the same exercise here. On off, and for the status, I select the info on off. Easy. So I'm doing the same exercise for the others. 3, okay, and 4. You see, it's all there. And you see the group addresses are there. The data point type is assigned. That can also be seen here, as well as here in the column. And we're ready to go. We have created the functions and we link them with the switching actuator and the push button. So what I would like actually to do is I would like to start KNX Virtual and download the configuration. So I started KNX Virtual. I leave all the settings as they are. I will select my interface here in ETS, and then I will download the switching actuator and clicks. So I'm clicking download. ETS is asking me to press the programming buttons. To do that, I go to devices, and then I have to enable the programming mode of device 7. So ETS is downloading the configuration. You see the individual address is taken. And now I have to download clicks D4. Individual address was taken. Take some time until the download is finished. Okay. Push button and switching actuator were downloaded. So let's have a look. So you see that clicks is already programmed. And I do have the functionality here. It switches the light on and off. And you also see the feedback here on the push button because the 1 and 0 become red. This is the feedback coming from the actuator. That was for the switching part. Let's do the dimming part as well. So I have the dimming actuator here, and you see here in this case I have more group objects. So if I open the channels, I have more group objects that belong to a channel. And yes, ETS will link those in one go. So I will drag and drop channel 1 from dimming actuator to the dimmable function. And here I will do the exercise once. So status, this is a status on off. I do not have an info on off value here, while I do have a dimming control. And you see that ETS already highlights the group object of the device that matches the size of, or that matches the data point type of the group address here. So I select it. Dimming value is the dimming value, and the value here is the info dimming value. Okay, so you have seen here that the configuration was done once. Now we do the same exercise for the other. Wait just a second. Channel 2, master dimmable 2. You see it's already pre-selected, so I only have to quickly, I'll just collapse those. Channel 4, master dimmable 4. Okay, and on the other side, I have to, of course, configure clicks to have dimming functionality. So let's have a closer look into channels 5, 6, 7, and 8. So they all have the same configuration. So the function that we have selected for clicks is dimming with 8-bit feedback. And this is for all the remaining 4 channels. and we do the same exercise. We start from 5, master dimmable 1. So again, the exercise here once more, dimming control, feedback dimming value, and value here we do not have. Okay. Now we are ready to do the same for the other channels. So channel 2, okay. Channel up, cancel. I just want to ensure that I don't make a mistake. Okay, and channel 8. Okay. So what I still have to do is download the dimming actuator and clicks to get the new configuration. So I select the devices, click download, and ETS will pick up the correct download process for both devices. So for the dimming, for the dimming actuator, I have to press the programming button, as we didn't download that before. Okay, the address is taken. And for the clicks, since we have already programmed it before, we didn't have to press the programming button. It was only a partial download. So let's have a look here. And you see, actually, we have the dimming function available in our channels. We can dim up and dim down. Quick and easy. Now, what I would like to show you is how to create channels for devices that do not have channels in their product definition. So I have picked up a random device which does not implement channels by default, and you see that there is no channels tab here shown, while for the other devices, when I click, there is a tab channels appearing. So I will select the switching actuator and I will right click, and you see there are two options here: add channels and suggest channels. Clicking the add channels allows us to manually create channels. Example given, I will call that channel 1, and I can also create several channels at the same time. Channel 3, channel 4, okay. And you see that there are 4 channels here which do not contain any group object. So what I can do, I can drag and drop the group objects from the list directly to the channels. And then if I expand the channels, you can see that the group objects are there. And you can achieve the same functionality. So we could drag and drop those channels to the functions. I will show you. So you see here we have to do a lot of manual work. That might take some time. So I will actually undo all the steps I have taken here. So I will simply I will simply delete. I will not use the undo function, because the undo function it does not apply, does not function with the channel creation, because this is information that is user specific and is not considered in the standard undo redo stack of ETS. So I will delete all the channels, and you can see that the group objects go back again to the flat list. Well, now if I right click and click the suggest channels feature, you see here there is a flat list of the channels here. Maybe what is better to do before we get the channels is to make some configuration here. For example, we would like to have the status object, so the feedback object for all channels. So you see that there is one more group object added here in the list per channel. So I will go now to the device, right click, suggest channels, and here you see a flat list of channels. Then I can actually click the next suggestion button, and ETS suggests by default some channels like on off, or here in this case only one. I can either accept it or create my own channel like I did before. So channel A, channel B, channel C, following the name pattern of the device here, channel D, channel E, channel F, okay, channel F, G, channel H. So I will select those two, drag and drop, drag and drop, drag and drop, drag and drop again here. So I have added, so collapse. I have added all the group addresses that were the group objects. All the group objects that were in the list. I added them in the channels, and I only left one group object out of the channels. Okay, so you can see here, all the group objects are belong to channels. And what is good is that this configuration that we have made here is stored locally in my computer under the usages of ETS. And this configuration, whenever I use this device again in one of my projects, will be available when I add the device in the project. So what I can do here, I can create another function. So add a switchable light. I will call it my light. I can create my light 1, my light 2, my light 3, 4, etc. So you see they appear here. So I will drag and drop channel here. So ETS will ask me once to make the configuration. So I'm selecting the first object for the switching and the second for the status. And then what I have to do, drag and drop, channel B. We have to do that per channel because here, since the device does not implement channels by default, we have to do the exercise for all the channels. So channel C here and status here. And then if we wanted to link them with a push button, we have to do the same exercise again. In order ETS to suggest the functions, ETS analyzes the text from the group object and of course, any possible group object function. So you see here, object function on off, ETS uses that as the primary information to suggest channels. So we have seen how to create the functions, how to create channels, how to link. What we haven't seen so far is how to create custom functions. Easy. So I will select the room. I will create a custom function, and I will call it my RGB control function. You see, this function is here. No group address is created. I can create my own group addresses. So if I take the channel configuration from my RGB controller, I can see that there are 4 group objects here of different size. So I can create one. I can add a group address in my function. I can call it switch on off. and then I have to also assign, it's optional, but it's good to have that metadata information to assign the data point type. So I go again, I see here, I have the RGB color, which is of type 232.600. So I will create, I will call it RGB control. And then I will define the data type here, 600. And what else do we have here? We have the RGB dimming and the info. So we have the RGB dimming and the dimming info on off. Dimming info on off. I would like also to assign the data types here. So this is dimming control, and this is info. And the same principle applies. So we have actually created a custom function, which we call it RGB control. And now we can link that function with the channel here. And we have to do, you see, because we have already defined the data types for the group addresses that we added in the function, ETS already suggests possible group objects that can be linked with those group addresses. You see, those are highlighted with black. So for the switching, I select that one. The RGB control, only that one. The dimming, I can expand that as well. The dimming, that one, and the dimming on off, which is the status feedback, that one. Okay, and in this way, we actually created a custom function, and we have linked it with a channel here. And yeah, that was it. As said before, the custom functions do not implement the metadata information, as we said before, the data point types and the possible roles. That means that this function will not be part of the smart linking. So if the manufacturer creates products and defines the standard roles for the group addresses, then our beloved function will not be able to be used automatically there, but we will have to manually define which group object will have to be linked with the corresponding group address. Now, let's also have a look on the project transfer to ETS Inside. So we have our project here with the functions. Everything is there. So I will close it, and then I will select it and send to ETS Inside. So the servers pop up here. I will select that one. I will enter my password. And my project is currently being uploaded to the ETS Inside server. I will start my ETS Inside client. I have a client for the desktop. The server is already found. So I will open my password again. So this is my project. I'm opening the project. And you see the building structure is shown here with the devices in the cabinet as well as the devices in the bedroom, plus the functions. So we do not have to recreate functions and manually link the group addresses of our project to the functions. Everything is there, as you can see. Also, the custom function is part of the project.